All right, so let's look at some ways to apply the percent. So usually your applications are going to fall into one of the following forms. Finding a percent of a number, so say 5 is what percent of 100. Finding what percent one number is of another. So maybe you found some shoes on sale for $25 and they're normally $38. What percent is 25 of 38? And finding a number when a percent of that number is known. So again, with the shoe example, maybe you got your shoes on sale for $25 and you know that it was 20% off what was the original price of the shoes. Okay, so we're going to look at a bunch of examples. And the first one here has to do with a house. So a house that sells for $245,000 requires a 20% down payment. What's the amount of the down payment? And we want to use a percent bar. So the idea with the percent bar is I'm going to draw this bar, and it represents the whole price. So on the bottom, I'm going to do my percents, and on the top I'm going to do my price. So I'm shaded 20% approximately of my bar, and I want to know what is the amount of the down payment. What is 20% of the whole, which was $245,000, and that's 100% of the cost. All right, so when I look at my percent, when I look at my percent bar, I can set up a ratio of dollar amount, in this case, to percent. And that's what we want to do here. So I set up the ratio. Dollar amount X is to 20% as 245,000 is to 100%. And I'm going to set those ratios equal. And now we're just going to solve. So we cross multiply. We get 100x equals, where are my zeros? 4,900,000. And now I can divide by 100 to get 49,000 equals x. So my down payment is 49,000. All right, so that's the idea here with a percent bar. Let's try another one. If Alberto has 56 correct answers on an 80-question test, what percent of his answers are correct? So again, we could set up a percent bar. So on the bottom, I've got my percents. Here's 0% and 100%. I know that 100% has to correspond to 80 questions in my exam, and Alberto got 56 questions correct. And I want to know what percent of 80 56 is. Okay, now that I've got my setup, I can just set up those ratios again. So I'm going to have 56 over x equals 80 over 100, and we just go through the same kind of steps to solve. So I'm going to try to squeeze this in. I'm going to cross multiply, so I get 5,600 equals 80x. Oops. And now I'm going to divide both sides by 80. I'm just going to cancel here. And so when I divide, I get 70 equals x. And x is a percent. So Alberto got 70% correct. Or corrects if you can't spell. There we go. Now you could have set this up using algebra. I'm going to try to squeeze that in here on my slide. So what happened here? Alberto got 56 correct on an 80 question test, and I want to know what percent of his answers were correct. So what I want to know is let's see how I want to write this. 56 over 80, I'm going to call this y. And if you do that division is 0.70. So what that means is that Alberto got, let's convert our decimal to a percent, right? 70% correct. All right, let's look at another example. Try again. 42% of the parents of school children in Paxton School District are employed at Paloma University. If the number of parents employed by the university is 168, how many parents are in the school district? So again, let's try this with the percent bar diagram. So I'm going to have 0% at the left, 100% at the right. On top, I'm looking at number of parents, right? And so what I know is the number of parents employed by the university is 168, and that is 42%. So I'm going to mark about 42%. Now, you don't have to be precise, but you should at least be on the right side of 50%, right? And by right, I mean correct. Here we're on the left side of 50%. So 42% of the parents is equal to 168. Here's my 0. And here is x. That's what I'm looking for. Okay, so from here we can set up our ratios. I have 168 over 42 equals x over 100. And we're going to cross multiply, so I get 168,000. Sorry, I said that wrong. 16,800 equals 42x. And you might need to do some scratch work off to the side to divide by 42. 4 goes into 16 4 times, so I'm going to try multiplying by 4, and in fact that gives me 168. And so I subtract and get 0, and I pick those zeros up here. So x equals 400. So there are 400 parents in the district. So that's the percent bar approach. Here's the algebra approach. So in the algebra approach, I know that 168 is 42% of the parents, right? So 42% in decimal form is 0.42. And so I'm going to write 0.42 times x, where x is the number of parents, equals, well, 42% of x equals 168. And now we divide by 0.42 to solve for x. X equals 400. Okay. All right, let's look at another couple examples. Now, normally in class, I would have you complete these on your own, and then we would come back and discuss them. So I would suggest that you pause the video and try these first, and then come back and compare your answer to mine. All right, so let's look at Kelly first. So she bought a bicycle and a year later sold it for 15% less than what she paid for it. If she sold the bike for $210, what did she pay for it? I'm going to draw my percent bar here. Here's my 0% on the left, 100% at the right. And what we know is she sold it for 15% less. So I'm going to go 15% to the left here. Now, that's not 15% of the price. It's 100 minus 15% of the price, or 85%. So 85% is $210. And we're looking for the original price x. So you're going to set up the ratios. 210 over 85 equals x over 100. Cross multiply and solve. So 21000 equals 85x. I'm going to divide by 85 on both sides. I'm going to trust that you're able to do that. What I got is 247.06 with rounding. And those are dollars because we're talking about the price. If you wanted to use the algebra approach, you might say 210 is what she paid for it. Let's let x be our unknown. In this case, that's the original price. And what she paid was the original price minus 15% or 0.15 times x. Excuse me. That's 210 equals 0.85x, and you can solve for x here. You'll get the same answer. All right, Westoners clothing store advertised a suit for 10% off for a savings of $15. Later, the manager marked the suit at 30% off the original price. What's the amount of the current discount? All right, this is more of a reasoning exercise. So if 10% off is a savings of $15, what that means is if X is my original price, then $15 is 10% or 0.10 times X. Now what do we want to know is what is 30% of X or 0.030 times X? Well, how do I get 0.30? I could take this and multiply by 3 on both sides. So if I multiply by 3, switch to the red, so 3 times 15 is equal to 3 times 0.10x. On the left I get 0.30x, and on the right I get 45. So the current discount is $45. Now, alternatively, you could have found the original price using your percent diagram. So 0%, we know that 10% is 15 up here, 100%, and we're looking for X. Again, you set up your, ratio. Oh my goodness. 15 over 10 equals X over 100. So 10X equals 1500. Divide by 10 to get 150. And now you could take 30%, do the same sort of thing to solve for, let's call this Y now, where now you know that X is 150. That'll also give you 45. All right, I want you to try an application problem on your own, and then we'll talk about some mental math with fractions and percents.